Hi, welcome to a special episode of When We Heal, the World Heals. I'm your host, Trish Hay, and I'm just sharing today a bit of my own survivor story. It's October, it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I do have a special guest who is going to share her story as well, and more from an expert point of view. I just want to share as a survivor. And what I feel especially called to share about is that um, kind of like this whole show, it's like let's break down some like myths or misperceptions about who is a victim of domestic violence. And for me, I was an educated woman. I was um, I was somebody who had witnessed domestic violence as a young child. My earliest memories, actually, my very earliest memory is of domestic violence and being very terrified and hiding under a bed. And it was scary, like very scary. So I guess I'm also just sharing, like, as a child, what it's like to witness domestic violence. It's so scary and it's so confusing. But as I grew older, I continued to see domestic violence. And one of the women in my life that was the recipient of domestic violence as I got older, it's like, I mean, I knew like this isn't right. Like, why don't you leave? Right? Like, and she just would say, I love him, like over and over again. And I just could not understand because it was so clear, like, this is not love. This is not okay. And at this time, I was finally developing my own thoughts and becoming my own young person. Like, this is like preteen years, I guess. And I was like, well, this is not going to be a relationship I'm in. Like, that's not acceptable. Like, I would never allow that. I'm not going to be hit. So I was very clearly knew that intellectually. And I will say that I went through a lot of traumas, and the link between people that end up in relationships with domestic violence, I'm going to have an expert to speak about this to tell you like the exact amount. But if you've been through childhood trauma and you've seen domestic violence, like the likelihood of you being in a relationship with that, like that goes up significantly. So I will say that I did started doing work as a teenager. I was reading a lot of books. I was trying to heal a lot of my own traumas. And I felt like I was in a pretty good place for being in my early 20s and was very clear on what wasn't acceptable to me and really was very cautious in who I dated, in particular, like men that seemed not angry, that seemed gentle. That I seen a lot of alcoholism linked to domestic violence, so I wouldn't even date anybody who drank alcohol. And I was just really clear, like this is not going to be me, right? Like I was very clear on what I didn't want. But then I found myself in a relationship, and it was a toxic relationship. I didn't realize it until after a marriage. The whole nother story will be being married to a toxic narcissist, which I was. And the process of what all that was like and the chipping away and at your mind and the threats. And there was just a lot of verbal abuse before any domestic violence occurred. And I mean, I was years into my marriage before domestic violence occurred. And also, I think it's just important to mention that, like, men, as far as I understand, at least I can only share from my experience. Okay, this person knew what they could get away with and when they couldn't. And when I was gonna leave, then all of this like niceness would come out and all these promises, and then there'd be changes, and then it's kind of like it is a cycle. And I just want to say, like, no woman, I just know, and also I know this happens to men, but like I didn't want to be in a relationship like that. I did not want to be hit. I did not want to be stuck in that circumstance. I've heard of some comments people say about, oh, a woman must like that. Why doesn't she leave? That is not true. And it's also so complex, the whole situation, because me as an adult woman, as an educated woman, I'd been through nursing school. I had read a lot of self-help books. I'd done a bit of therapy. I felt like I can make pretty good decisions. But at the time that this occurred, I didn't leave. I didn't leave. I didn't call the police. I um, I had a lot of justifications, I think, in my mind for I knew if I left, I had had a lot of threats. So I knew if I left that number one, there was a high likelihood I was going to be killed. Um, and then there were a lot of threats against taking my children away from me. So it's very complicated. Like, please do not judge another woman in this situation or man, because you really don't know. It was just a lot of confusion and a lot of terror, and then a lot of me trying to decide, like, if I leave, I'm just really setting like a whole new set of problems. And I know I was at such a place of privilege that I was able to obtain therapy during this time, and even working with what I feel were good therapists and getting second opinions. A lot of people said the same thing to me, like, you just need to realize if you do leave, like, you are just exchanging problems. If you have children with this person, it's terrifying to think like, okay, now I'm going to have to leave my children with this person. So there's a level of control that I felt. And I felt like because my children weren't seeing it, like somehow I picked this person. Something's wrong with me. How did I pick this man? And I was like, so clearly not what I wanted. So I blamed myself a lot. And I just thought, okay, like I've got some babies to protect. I'm going to have to endure this until they're raised. And so I did for as long as I could. Um, and until I got to the point to where I literally could not, I had to get to the point to where I really knew, number one, there was a high likelihood would be killed, and I knew this person would get away with it. And then if I was killed, then the abuser gets custody of the children, right? So that's a bad scenario. Two, I was constantly threatened, as I know many people have been, like, no one's going to believe you. I'm going to say you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. And so then I have the situation of what I knew at the time that I left, chose to leave, that this person, especially, I can't say this is, I think this is from a lot of abusers because there's a lot of control, but I will say I knew what I was dealing with being married to this toxic narcissist, that these were not empty threats, that he was going to continue to come after me and continue to, I mean, he was the abuser, but he was like keeping me on the offensive. And so I don't know, I really spent many, many years then separated from this person, still him doing everything in his power to control and cause chaos in my life, in the life of my children. So I don't know if this is really making sense, but I'm just trying to convey that I, as a woman who I felt like had so much privilege and education, I also was able to hire attorneys, even though I didn't have access to money, because that's part of it. They slowly cut you off from money. So please don't let that happen to you. Have your own personal money. But that's a part of the cycle. There is something that slowly came into place. But I know that I was very fortunate that I was able to get an attorney just based on the fact that my ex happened to make a lot of money. So the attorney said he'll get the fees from him. So he was able to take on my case. And I was able to arrange to be out of the state, far away, when he'd be served, when I knew it was like the most highest chance of being murdered. So I feel like this was a terrifying thing. Like, it took great courage, like so much courage to leave. And I feel like I keep saying this, but it's only because I want women to know, like, there's nothing wrong with you. Because I really judged myself a lot. Like, how did you end up in that circumstance? Even though I did everything I could to like try to, like, of course, get him in therapy, repair my family. I wanted him to be as healthy as possible just because I'm a loving, kind person. And before I knew he had this narcissistic personality thing, I kept thinking like, well, he can change, we can heal this. And I wanted my children to have a loving, healthy, balanced father. So that's also part of it, right? And I know I was getting promised, like every time I was about to like walk out the door, is like, then things would back up. So I don't know. I just want to share, like, I guess a big part of what I want to share also is that my ex is a doctor actually, and I did what I could to protect patients from him. And there's a whole like there could be a book about this, you guys, or a movie. But all I saw is everywhere in society, everywhere I'd go, people would be like, "Oh my gosh, he's so amazing. You're so lucky. You're so blessed." And on the outside, it looked like I had this perfect little world, a white picket fence, this loving husband, these kids, which the kids, yes, beautiful, my most biggest blessing. But I felt like I was just participating in such a lie by just being silent. And it'd be like literally everywhere I went, like everybody would say that to me, like, "Oh, you were so lucky." And then when we were in public, of course, he was very doting, he was very loving. And sometimes when we would be in like for a whole day somewhere where there's a lot of other people around, I'd kind of even buy into it and be like, this is like my husband, like he's loving. And then it would like, as soon as we get in the car, it would switch real fast. And it was like, no, this is just like for them to see. So I also want to share that this happened in a very ultra conservative church. Um, it's called the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I do strongly believe it's a cult. I can say as a someone who didn't grow up in it, but then became a member because of this man that I met, um, that I knew a lot of women in this church. In fact, they started a women's ministry. I was really trying to like support the women and then be involved in what's being taught to the children because I didn't want my children to be taught scary things. So I was trying to do all this all along. I created this community of women. We would go to tea together. We would go on all these play dates together. Like we were close. And I was really thankful, but I never told him anything. In fact, they would just always say, like, "Oh my gosh, your husband, you're so lucky." And I just felt terrified to say anything. And also, part of me felt like it was like disloyal or something, which really makes no sense other than um, I had devoted my life to him. I don't know if it's that or it was a lot of the religious teachings that I had been taught was like honoring your husband, respecting your husband. I don't know. Makes no sense to me now when I look back. I'm like, there was a scared little child inside of me, but also a legit terrified woman because I knew what this man was capable of. So, what was the real surprise to this whole story to me was when I finally got to the point I was able to come up with this huge plan. I was able to get free from him, at least file papers in the beginning process. At that time, I was completely like excommunicated or whatever. I was told like I wasn't welcomed at the church, and which was fine. I didn't want to be a part of that church anymore anyway. But I loved the people and I loved the women. But they all came to me very quietly, like not even on the phone. Like I would get these knocks on my door. I was living in this like private area, separated in this private little apartment area. And all of these women came to my door, like one by one, and they would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you that you're getting away. And thank you for talking about this." And then they would share how they were being abused by their husband. And like, it was literally like almost every single woman that I had spent all this time with. And I also was thinking like their husbands looked like so amazing, so doting. And like I would have never, ever thought that these men, and a lot of them were doctors or pillars of society, whatever you want to call it. And all of these women were also college educated women, very capable of taking care of things, on their own. But they just said they couldn't leave because they were raised in the church. Like it's not a lot of people at that time that had converted. A lot of people were just born Seventh-day Adventists. They go to only Seventh-day Adventist schools, even Seventh-day Adventist colleges, and they're in a little Seventh-day Adventist world. So for them, I can have a lot of compassion because I will say like it was very painful for me to literally have like even the pastor be like, "I can't look at you. Like you disgust me." Just because I filed for divorce, like that was painful. But for all of these women, it was like not, they were like literally like, "I will lose my family." And that's all they'd known. So I have so much compassion also for their situations. But when I think about the time that we spent, a couple of years that we were together a lot, we were praying for each other. We were uh, like I would have thought somebody would share, but I didn't. right? So I know one was a doctor as well. So this happens to like all levels. Um, Women that run businesses, they're being abused. So I just want to, I guess, be clear about domestic violence happens in every type of socioeconomic status. Uh, do I have so much compassion and like so much like wanting to help any women that like truly a lot of women are like in these relationships as teenagers. They really don't, they're really cut off from resources. They don't have education, they have no money. So it's really important that they have somebody who believes in them, will help them get out of it, and that they get into a shelter. But as far as the answer to like, why don't they leave? Like maybe for some of them, that's the situation, a financial piece of it. But for me, I could have left and got a job as a registered nurse and like, you know, so, but why didn't I leave? I was terrified and I was threatened. And he kept saying he would outmoney me in court and all these things. And he was in a position of power over me. And in reality, I am a warrior. I fought like hell in court. I did. I don't even know the exact number, way over 100 grand, probably close to 200 grand cost on attorney's fees to try to get out of the situation and protect my children. So, and I sat in a courtroom with seeing a lot of women go up with no attorney at all. And the men would have one attorney or two attorneys, like my ex. So I just say, like, also, if you don't have any money and you don't have an attorney, there are resources, there are free resources, and you can go and represent yourself, at least in the state of California, you can for sure. And so don't let not having an attorney scare you. Like, get help. Like, really, like, just whatever you need to do. Like, if you're not choosing to leave at this time, get a support system. Like I said, I was so privileged to have a therapist that I could talk through things with. Um, I'm going to have linked on here, there is free resources that you can call 24 hours a day. I am not a therapist, but I started a Facebook community called When We Heal, the World Heals. It is a safe space for people to come that have been through all things. Sometimes you may not feel safe on social media. Maybe you need to have a private account that your abuser doesn't know about, that you just go and find communities and find support, if you're able to do that, just so that you get what you need. But just, I want you to know that if you've experienced this, I'm sorry, and it's not your fault. And and sometimes it's just like you're in a situation and you're faced, like for me, I was like, this is a bad option and this is a bad option. And that, like, there was like, well, how do I even choose the lesser of evils in this situation? So I know it's very complicated, and whether you choose to stay or to leave, I just wanted you to know I'm sending you love. I'm sending you support. You are worthy of love. Of course, you're worthy of love and do not deserve ever to be hit or mistreated verbally, physically, ever. It's completely unacceptable and it's illegal. And I do think there need to be harsher, consequences for people that perpetrate also domestic violence. But that's like a whole other thing. But just have like self-love and compassion for yourself, because I think the hardest thing of it all, when I look back, like after I get out of it, I've just had to heal over the last, years, when I got more into a position of safety, got my children truly safe from this person. It's like, I really had a lot of self-judgment. I was very angry at myself for like, how in the heck? But I did the best I could with the knowledge I had. I mean, I don't think you have to be a narcissist to be a manipulator, but I happen this, he was a narcissist. He presented a white picket fence to me. He just told me everything that I did want to hear, right? And I didn't know. Now we have a lot of resources talking about narcissism, and I'm glad about that. But I had no idea what that was. And getting in therapy, it was pretty miraculous. I know that I was able to get him into therapy with me enough that we had a really good professional who diagnosed him. And then I could start reading books on narcissism and understanding a little bit better, like, oh, there is no matter of me just loving him more or helping him heal his inner child or all of these different fantasies I guess I had that I could make a more loving environment with this person and parent with this person. So I think resources for knowing that, like I'm just going to say also just speaking to being with a narcissist is once I read the books, it made so much sense. But before that, there was just so much confusion. It would be like, I just kept feeling like this person is soulless. And I know nobody is really soulless now, but like it was like a vacant vessel. And then he would literally just put on these masks in these different scenarios. Even within our family, like he would come and sit, I'd make dinner and he'd come sit in dinner and there'd be these certain masks for the children. So I think I kind of justified too, because I felt like, you know, my children were not seeing something negative from him sitting at dinner. Like there's just like, it's complicated, you guys. It's complicated and it's confusing. And if you've had a lot of childhood trauma, like truly, I was just like, I didn't even know what hit me, really. And like I said, I'm not minimizing my situation at all. It was terrifying. I know I'm lucky to be alive. I know I'm lucky to be out of it, and to have the resources that I have. And I know that women are being murdered regularly by the person that they married or their partners. And they didn't sign on for that. You know, that's not the goal. Women do not enjoy being hit. They do not want to be mistreated. If they're in that situation, maybe for me, like I said, I don't know, maybe parts of me were frozen. Parts of me, the part of me that was alive was the mother in me that definitely saved me. It was like the warrior in me was like, I'm gonna freaking make a better life for these kids and kind of keep on going and learning and doing what I need to, so that they have a mom who's alive. But yeah, that's my story. I'd like to talk more about it, but I just want to be vulnerable and real and just say, like, I am a domestic violence survivor. I'm not ashamed right now. I was really ashamed of it before because I felt like you knew better, you had resources. Like, I don't know, I had a lot of self-judgment, but I just have compassion for myself now and for that young woman who was just so confused and just loved her kids so much and just wanted like a better life for them. So, um, part of when we heal, the world heals is just like talking about all these things that people don't talk about. And really, I don't find people talk about domestic violence that much. And when I hear a lot of things, like I said, there are a lot of judging and kind of blaming the women. But let's talk about the men that do it, because why? Why did he do it? Why could he get away with it? Right? He also knew, obviously, like he targeted me definitely, as knowing that someone that he could deceive and um, and he knew at what point in the relationship that things could escalate. And he was a master at knowing when he needed to back off, what he needed to do to like keep it, because his ultimate thing was if I left him, like, because of his ego, he would look bad. He would rather kill me than be like somebody divorced him, because that's like, for a narcissist, he always has to look good. So it's like the ultimate betrayal that like I made him look like a bad husband, right? So I don't know. That's all I wanted to share, and also just share like anybody who witnessed domestic violence, also just reach out to me personally. Of course, go to professional counselors, but our community is free. Come to our community, because it's only been more recently that I've even understood how much of a trauma that was as a child to witness domestic violence. Like it was terrifying, and it is one of the things that's on the uh, adverse childhood events study for showing that you're more likely to get ill by being just have witnessed, not just, but to witness it as a child. Like it is a trauma. It's terrifying to see all that violence, and especially if it's your parents. So yeah, I'll be I'll be having somebody else sharing their story and also professionally sharing some of the statistics of why this happens. I can only speak for myself and my story, but it's been on my heart that it's October and I'm like, I just want to share my journey with domestic violence um and let you guys know, anybody who's listening, that like you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You did not deserve that. Speak out. Find a safe place to speak out. And like I said, again, I'll link the phone numbers down here. You can join the Facebook group. You can private message me. Just want everyone to know like you're not alone and you are supported and yeah, we're here to listen, here to just hold space for you. And you deserve to be free and you deserve to be loved and cherished and just honored and respected. And your children deserve that as well. So, yeah, you get to be free. That's my message for you. Just hang in there, one one choice after the next, and come and join us and see how we can support you as well. Sending you all so much love, truly. You are wonderful and you are beautiful and you are enough. Bye.